Hey everyone, welcome to a cocktail of yarn. If you're new to my channel, I post knitting tips, tricks and tutorials every week so you can become a knitting pro. I also want you to enjoy your new hobby, so let's get into today's video where I talk about the right side and wrong side of knitting. But first, we have to visit the beginning of our knitting pattern. Imagine this, you've completed your cast on and you're holding your needle in your left hand. We'll call this the right side of your knitting, or the front side of your knitting. We're also going to follow a knitting pattern that shows row 1 RSK and row 2 WSK. The RS stands for right side, the K stands for knit, and the WS stands for wrong side. So what we do is knit the first row, and whilst I do this, you'll notice the stitches move onto my right needle. You'll also notice my stitches making a V shape. This is a really helpful tip to remember, especially when you're knitting, as you can confuse your stitches. So always look out for the V in your row as it means knit stitch. When we get to the end of the row, we're going to place the needle in our left hand, and when we flip our yarn, we'll see the back of our project. This is called the wrong side. I've started knitting a few stitches, and you might see these dashes rather than the V's I showed you from the first row. You might be thinking that the dashes look a lot like a purl stitch, and you also might question why this happens. Well, a purl stitch is a knit stitch that can be seen from the other side, and a knit stitch is a backwards purl stitch. So if we were to knit row 1, turn it over, and begin knitting row 2, which is the wrong side, and if we continue this pattern, we'll notice a knit stitch in every odd row and a purl stitch in every even row. This is also called the garter stitch. The garter stitch is a beautiful pattern, but let's say you want a seamless knit or purl stitch on one side. What would you do? Well, if we go back to what I just said about purl stitches being a reverse knit stitch and knit stitches being a reverse purl stitch, we would simply change our pattern. To make the pattern unified with the knit stitch, we would do the following. Row 1, which is our right side, would become a knit stitch, and row 2, which is our wrong side, would become a purl stitch. We would continue this pattern to create a seamless knit stitch on one side. Now, if you remember the V's and dashes I spoke about earlier on, this is where that tip becomes really helpful because we can lose track of our rows or the stitch we're on. By being able to read your knitting, you can save a lot of time. The knitting pattern we're creating is called a stockinette stitch. A stockinette stitch creates a unified pattern on both sides just like this. As you can see, our front is a knit stitch and our back is a purl. As I'm knitting my first row, you'll notice the V's I was talking about. When it comes to my second row, I'm going to place my knitting in my left hand, and then I'm going to purl this entire row. You'll notice the V shape carries on throughout this row. It's pretty cool, right? But let's say you want to do the same with your purl stitch. We would start off with the purl stitch in row 1 until we reach the end like so. And then we would knit the second row, as this would be the wrong side or the back of our project. You would repeat this pattern, and by doing so, you would create a seamless purl stitch at the front and a knit stitch on the other side. And that brings us to the end of this video. If you found this explanation helpful, please drop a like, comment, subscribe, and make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss an upload. If you're looking for more tutorials, check out my Knitting Basics playlist where I teach you different techniques, tips and tricks. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you weave your knitting narrative. See you next week.